Don't move to Boise unless you're okay with these factors. I'm gonna jump right into the video. If you're moving to the Boise area, I wanna make sure you know these things. I've talked about a little bit of these things through other videos, but I wanna go into a little bit more detail and specifically focus on the things that are hard to deal with so that you're prepared before moving here. Now, the first thing we have up is weather. The two big things with weather that I see countless times, and I see people who move here and then end up moving away with weather: the cold in the winter when it gets into those single digits, or in the summer when it gets to those triple digits, and then you add in some of the dry weather and a few other things that I'm going to talk about. But it's not just the weather that people hate about Boise. My name is Brady Fagel. I am a local realtor in the Boise area. I would love to get to know you, sit down, hear your story, see why you want to move here, and help you in your relocating journey. So if you have any questions during the course of this video, there's anything that's on your mind that's concerning you, please reach out, shoot me a text anytime, any day of the week. Book a call with me in the link down below. But let's get right back into the video. We're gonna start with the 4 seasons that Boise has. We do have a true 4-season year, and with that comes the winter and the summers that I talked to you about. With the winters and the summers and these mix of fall and spring, sometimes people have to go out and buy a bunch of new clothes, which is a little bit annoying at times, but you need to get stuff for the winter, you need to get stuff for the fall and the spring when we still have cold or cool temperatures, and that can be a little bit of a hassle. The bigger thing with winter is that cold temperatures and the snow that we get. Although it can be a little bit exaggerated, I think we only get a few days out of the year where the snow really does affect people when you're driving. And the cold, it is rare that we get into the teens, the single digits, but it does happen a few times a year, and some years are worse than others, whether it's the snow or the temperatures. Although I do not think it's a necessity to go out and buy a new 4-wheel drive vehicle. Some people do, and that can be a hassle, is learning to drive in the snow, learning to get used to that cold. A little bit of a tip there is, instead of going out and buying a whole 4-wheel drive, a brand new vehicle, just use your current car, get some snow tires. You'll be fine. We don't have that many days out of the year. The summers do get into the 100+ degree temperatures. Some years that can be for weeks, sometimes it can be for days, but you combine that with the super dry climate that Idaho and Boise do have, it can be a little bit of a deterrent for people moving to the Boise area. Now, diving into a little bit more detail comes wildfire season. We get a lot of smoke in the summertime from July all the way up even into September sometimes. A lot of this comes from California and Oregon. The fires up there, the wind and the cycles bring it up into Boise, and because Boise is a valley, a lot of that smoke likes to sit. Wildfire season in Boise can be a big deterrent. There's times where the sun is orange and red, and I know a lot of other states deal with this. And with the wildfire seasons comes bad air quality on top of the sun and the gloomy and the dark look. But that air quality, if you do have things like asthma, you have kids that have asthma, or you're just sensitive to that smoke and that low air quality, it can be a big problem in the summer. I know there's times where in high school or even now, some of my siblings, their football seasons or their practices will get canceled, and that smoke can really impact day-to-day life, on top of it just mentally being a little bit draining there for a few months. Inversions. So inversions are something that happens in the winter time in Boise. Essentially what happens is the clouds in the atmosphere get stuck up against the mountains, creates this gloomy, cloudy environment for days or weeks at a time, and the air quality is bad as well. So the same thing that applies to the smoke season, this can apply during the inversion season in the winter time. This usually happens in January to February, and we can get 1, 2, 3, sometimes even 4 of these a year. Now, if you are prone to seasonal depression, or this is something that really affects you, there's a few tips to get out of that inversion, and that's to go up into the mountains, which can actually be an amazing thing. So Bogus Basin, which is located just outside of Boise, it's only about a 30-minute drive up into the ski resort. You get above the clouds. So those clouds that stick up against the mountains, you actually get above them, and it's this beautiful flat clouds as far as you can see, and the sun is shining. I remember the first time I was a kid and I saw this and I couldn't believe my eyes. And it's really just a cool way to escape. Even if you don't like to ski or snowboard, Bogus Basin is a great way to escape. They have a lodge up there, so you can grab lunch, dinner, there's tubing, there's places to just walk around and enjoy the sun when the inversions are overtaking the Boise area. Another thing, like I said, if you do struggle with seasonal depression and these shorter days combined with the inversions in January and February in Boise, having a sun lamp, making sure you're getting exercise, but that sun lamp and having that in your house, waking up to a light that is the same wavelength as the sun that can really help during those winter months in the Boise area. In August time, July, Boise gets a ton of flies. It depends where you live, and some years are worse than others, but there's house flies and horse flies everywhere. In the backyards, you'll have them by the hundreds, and it is a real problem. You got to get fly traps, you got to figure out how to deal with it, but it's a real pain when you go to restaurants, and if you want to sit outside, you're dealing with flies all the time. And then of course mosquitoes. If you're coming from a place where you're not used to mosquitoes, we do get mosquitoes. And one thing that I did not know until a few months ago is that Boise does have cockroaches. I just recently got cockroaches, and I did not know that they could exist, but I have found out that they can, and it is a pain to get rid of them. I have found out though that they do come from people moving in from California or the South or wherever they come from. When they move, they bring them with them, and they can infest houses, or if you're in an apartment complex, it can get into the other apartments. So second on the list is a lot of people don't like how far we are away from a lot of the major cities. It's not like California where you can go up the coast and you can hit San Diego, then LA and Sacramento and San Jose and San Francisco, and have all of these major cities to view all within a few hours of where you live. In Boise, the closest major city that we have is Salt Lake City, which is about a 3.5, 4 hour drive, depending on how fast you drive. And then the other major cities are Portland or Seattle. Other than that, Boise is fairly isolated when it comes to going and visiting other major cities where you may want to visit and do things. We do have places like McCall and Cascade, which is about an 1.5 hour drive north of Boise. Those are small mountain towns, so there's escapes to get out of Boise and get up into the mountains. But if you do like having big cities close by, it can be a deterrent. And what comes with that is the flights that come out of Boise. This can be a problem for people. Is the main direct flights that we have are Dallas, Salt Lake, Denver, and San Francisco. So we really only have those 4 major direct flights. Everything else traveling out of the Boise area, you're going to have multiple connections to get to wherever you want to go. So that can be a little bit of a hassle. People are used to being able to direct flight to a lot of places where maybe their family is or where you like to vacation, but the Boise airport is a little bit smaller than some of the other major cities. Now, Boise is planning to upgrade that, and I have seen that it is expanding and there are more things coming to the Boise airport. But the housing affordability in the Boise area over the last 5, 10, or really just the last 2 years has really been a problem for a lot of people moving to Boise. Big complaint is that the home prices have gone up and it's not as affordable as it once was. But if you are moving from places where a lot of you are moving from, which is California, Portland, Seattle, DC, a lot of those areas, it's still much more affordable. A lot of people don't get as much bang for their buck, and it can be harder because if you do want to work in the Boise area, some of the salaries here are a lot lower than people are used to, and I've seen that as a big complaint. Is you move to Boise, and if you have to get a new job here, your salaries aren't the same, which makes the housing affordability even worse. That's a big problem in Boise right now. It is hard to find a good home for under $300,000, and most of the homes that people or you are going to be looking at are in that $400,000 to $600,000 range for a typical single-family home. On top of that, despite this large increase in home prices along with the population, there's still a lot of room to develop, so there is a little bit of hope there that inventory keeps catching up. And with the way the economy is right now, hopefully affordability will soon get a little bit better. But that development that I talked about with the expansion of Boise and how fast it's grown and gotten home prices to go up has come really small lot sizes. So I've done a few videos on some neighborhoods you can take a look at, and I'm sure I'll have some drone footage up in this video, but you can see that a lot of the homes in the neighborhoods are on smaller lot sizes. It seemed like over the years, they've tried to cram more and more homes into each neighborhood. You can be living really close to each other, and even though you have a nice home in a nice neighborhood, there's super small backyards, front yards, and you're feet from your next door neighbor, which can be a problem and people don't enjoy if you can't afford to buy an acre lot or some of the bigger lot sizes outside of the center of the city. On that note though, the lower cost of living when it comes to taxes or groceries or transportation, a lot of the costs of living are lower in Boise, so it does help offset some of that affordability. Along those lines, the income taxes for some people can actually be a con in the Boise area. Now, if you are coming from a place like California, you may be used to paying those higher state income taxes, but people want to have that zero income tax like Wyoming or Tennessee or Florida. and they come to Boise thinking that it's a low income tax when actually we have about a 5.8% state income tax. Although it is lower than other states, it can be something to know and may deter people from moving to the Boise area. The next thing on the list is the population and growth of Boise, which I touched on a little bit earlier. But Boise has grown over 90,000 people just in the last 2 years. So Boise and the entire Treasure Valley area, which is Meridian and Kuna and Nampa, Caldwell, have grown hundreds of thousands of people over the last 10 years. And with that has come a lot of traffic. So there's a lot of traffic in the Boise area. It's a big problem. It's not as much the interstate, which does get crammed, but all of the side streets, it hasn't had the chance to get the infrastructure to grow as fast as the population has. You have construction trying to catch up with a lot of excess people, and it does get crammed, especially on those side roads. It can be annoying when it takes 15-20 minutes to get 2 or 3 miles down the road. So picking where you live and learning that there are ways around this and times to go places and times to not can help. With this population growth as well comes a lot of mixed development that has happened. A lot of investors and real estate money has been poured into the Boise area. So you're going to get a lot of areas that you'll have rundown old homes next to mobile homes, next to brand new duplexes, next to an old apartment complex, next to a commercial thing. And it can look a little cluttered, feel a little weird, and it's a little bit less desirable. I know people that will go look at houses and we'll see them in certain parts of the area, in certain parts of Boise specifically, and they just don't like that look. It feels unsafe or it feels gross. Even though it's a nice brand new home, it's covered around by old houses that are a little run down next to an apartment complex. And so a lot of this mixed development can be a con for people moving to the Boise area. Now, schools and public amenities has also struggled to catch up. The schools in the Boise area are extremely overpopulated. Teachers are having 25, 35, even 40 students per classroom. And I have family members and my fiance is teachers, and I know the struggle that has happened where we get so many people that the government hasn't had a chance to catch up to this huge boom in growth and population. So the schools are the ones that get hit, and this will eventually get solved. But for now, it is just a waiting game. And with a lot of new things and new developments coming to the Boise area, like some big manufacturing plants and a lot of new jobs and the continued growth of people leaving places to come to Boise, we'll see what happens. But there is hope that it is going to kind of resolve, in some of those transportation, traffic, schooling, services, all of these things are going to get fixed, and we're going to catch up on that. Now, the next one on the list is a little bit of a topic. It's the attitudes towards Californians. It can be a deterrent for people who are moving from California or just out of state, but specifically California, because a lot of people from California have moved to the Boise area. A big complaint is that the attitude towards them after moving here was too much, and they didn't feel welcome and they didn't like the environment here. Now, although that is true, there are people here that do want people to not move to the Boise area, and there are people out there that are not welcoming. The vast majority of people in Boise are welcoming. We want people to come here. People are moving to Boise for a reason. So a lot of the people in the Boise area want people to move here to continue that. There's a reason that people love Boise. There's a reason that it's a desirable place to live. And if that's the case, there's no issues. But besides that, most people in Boise are extremely friendly. It's one of the big reasons I love living here, is the welcomeness, the small town feel, the kindness that most people in the Boise area have. But if you are moving from California, you may get some flack. There may be some things that you'll see where you'll see bumper stickers that say "Get California out of Idaho." And it's something that has deterred people from moving away and going back to California or to another state. Now, these last few I'm going to touch on a little bit. These are less major topics, but still can be deterrents. The first one is public transportation. There is not a lot of public transportation in the Boise area. We do have a bus system, but it is minimal. And other than that, about the only things you're going to find are the green scooters and bikes downtown Boise. The next thing is a lack of diversity. I actually have a funny story about this. I have a friend who moved to Texas, and he was dating a girl who was from Seattle, and then when he came back to visit with her Her comment was there's a lot of white people in Boise, which can be true. There is a little bit of a lack of diversity in the Boise area, and some people dislike that if you're used to growing up in a big city. It's not that Boise's racist or Idaho's racist like some people think. Now, if you go into Nampa and Caldwell, there's a big Hispanic community there, and then even in Boise itself, I have noticed it has gotten more diverse over the 20 plus years that I've lived here. And there's a Basque community, there's a big Greek culture here. It is getting more and more diverse. The next thing is the drug use increases. I know ever since I was a kid living here, methamphetamines and drug issues have always been a problem, but now you incorporate some of the fentanyl and some of the problems going on today, and there has been a drug use increase, which can be a deterrent, especially depending on where you live and where your budgets are at. So the drug use has had an increase in the Boise area, but again, overall, Boise is an extremely safe, nice city, especially when you compare it to other metropolitan areas. And there is still a lot of suburbs in the Boise area that are extremely nice, like Eagle, Kuna, or Star, Middleton. At the end of all of this, those are a lot of the reasons why not to move here. Now, there is a lot of reasons why you should move to the Boise area. There's a lot of reasons why people love moving here. But you do want to know about the reasons why you shouldn't live in Boise, because the last thing you want to do is move here with all this optimism and positivity that people spread to you, and then find out that you weren't aware of some of the reasons why you don't want to live in Boise and you have to end up moving.